What is up, YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elon Muskular, and in this video we're going to be looking at Tom Platz. He talked about steroids. He did this conversation with a panel of people back in 1985, and we're going to look at his ideas. Do they still stand true today? Is it broscience? Does he have a good point? And I'm going to react to what he says. So let's jump right into it and see what Tom Platz, the Golden Eagle, has to say about taking steroids.
And that's what I really want to imply as well, and I think I can feel it here. Okay, where are we going to go this time? All right, the lady over here.
First thing I want to say is look at that jaw. Jesus Christ. I mean, can you take steroids to get a jaw like that? That's genetics.
We hear a lot about steroids being dangerous, and yet I think that all the top guys are using them. Is there a secret to take them safely?
Oh, I never used steroids in my life. Oh my God.
So this is kind of like a good and a bad question. Is there a secret to taking them safely? I think this is a question that still really resonates today. People think that if they get a certain level of information that they'll be able to take steroids in a safer way. The only way to take steroids in a safer way is to just take less of them. The less that you take, the more safe it is. That's the secret for you guys. But let's see what Tom has to say.
Okay. Now, the reason I'm very open and honest about steroids and steroid usage, because I feel that for so long, athletes, not just bodybuilders, I learned about steroids from swimmers when I was in college, okay? Steroids are around, and they're happen to be used in bodybuilding, and rather than to hide the fact that I have used them, do use them throughout the course of the year, I'd rather be honest with you and tell you some of the problems, some of the proper procedures, because I'd like to discourage abuse. Okay, I think abuse is why should that be present at all? Possibly proper usage or no use at all. And I know because my honesty and I'm admitting it that I use steroids, people are going to think, oh well, I got to take them too.
The thing with separating abuse and proper usage is that it's really hard to understand where the abuse line begins and where the proper usage line ends. I mean, what is the proper usage? These things were not developed for, bodybuilding. So how can you properly use them in that context? We only have studies really up to like 600 milligrams of testosterone. And these studies weren't even around when Tom was saying this. So I think that it's, when you're talking about proper usage versus abuse, what you're really talking about is lower dosages. And in order to get to the top of the bodybuilding elite, like Tom was, that is abuse. Like, that is abuse. You are abusing your body to become the best in the world at something. Use is average. Abuse is above average. So keep that in mind.
I can't know a way I can recommend steroids. Okay, I don't mean to do that. It's hard to get around the subject, and it's just the only solution I have at the moment is to be totally upfront, totally honest, open up to you, and tell you where I'm at. Okay, I don't believe that steroids create champion athletes, and I sincerely believe the same top athletes.
So this is like, your standard 30 years ago spiel, politically correct spiel that they have to give out and be like, steroids don't make champions. I was better before I took them. Don't take them. So, like, being this like apologetic attitude, like as if you are doing something wrong, you'd rather not be doing it. I think this mindset really needs to go away.
Would be there at the top with or without steroids. However, not that they don't work either. Okay, I think that's obvious. Steroids do work. However, God, you gotta lead me a little more, because I'm gonna go. There's so many different ways to go from here. Okay, I'm a firm believer. If someone decides to use steroids, and it's their personal choice whether they decided to do this or not, whether they're man, female, animal, or whatever. Okay, I would suggest having blood assays done periodically through the duration of usage. I think it's important. Another way you can tell.
So I would say this is pretty before his time, talking about, having blood tests done to make sure that you're healthy throughout the time that you're using steroids. That is obviously good advice. Still something that not a lot of people do today. Something that definitely is recommended to this day.
if you're taking too many steroids, and I mean, if your eyes turn yellow and your face looks weird, maybe you're taking too much. Okay, I've seen some of these effects in people I know, and abuse does exist. Abuse exists everywhere. As a maximum figure on steroids, I like to. If you really want to discuss figures, I would say that the most I've ever taken, the most I would ever consider taking would be 100 milligrams a day. Okay, 100 milligrams is based upon my body weight and the type of steroids I take. I believe in anabolic.
So when he's talking about 100 milligrams a day, it's unclear whether he's talking about 100 milligrams a day of a given compound or 100 milligrams a day total compounds. I can tell you that there's no way that Tom Platz took 700 milligrams a week total, okay? There is a way that he took 700 milligrams a week of, primobolan, deca, and winstrol, equating up to 2.1 grams a week, yes.
Therapy and not androgenic therapy. This is really tough to put into one sentence. I'll have to put it into 3 or 4, okay? When you're dealing with steroids, you have to realize that they enable you to recuperate quicker. And the whole essence of bodybuilding lies in recuperation. I mean, you get weaker and smaller in the gym, and when you go home and you rest and you eat and you sleep, you get stronger and you recuperate. And so what the steroids do is enable you to recuperate quicker from workout to workout. So in essence, you can get more heavier workouts in per month, say, which leads you to develop faster, of course. There are certain skin characteristics, degrees of polish I receive from steroid usage that I could not get otherwise.
So that's not really necessarily true that they allow you to recuperate faster and get more workouts in. Yes, obviously they do aid in recovery, but if you are training correctly, you should be able to train the same amount that you would when you were natural. Some of the top bodybuilders like Dorian Yates really train 4 or 5 times a week. And a lot of these golden era guys, they thought that, we're taking steroids so we could train 6 days a week, twice a day, because we're recovering more since we're taking steroids. And, what has been shown is that you still need time to recover, whether you're on steroids or not. It doesn't really change the amount of recovery time that you need from your workouts that much as they thought. And it still makes sense to take more time off the gym, whether you're on cycle or whether you're not on cycle.
Although I found that I've been at my very strongest. I've gotten my biggest, strongest lifts without steroids when I was younger. So I don't really believe that they help me do things I couldn't do without them. Although to obtain a degree of polish and skin texture, that's what the anabolic situation seems to provide for me before the Olympia contest. I can hang on to more body weight, maybe 10, 15 more pounds of body weight than I normally could.
So, it's a little hypocritical. He says that they didn't allow him to do anything that he couldn't have done naturally, and then he goes on to state what they do that allows him to do what he couldn't do naturally. So, biggest lifts not being on steroids, I think that really just boils down to the fact that during those blocks, he was pushing himself more in a strength phase. If he, took the same amount of steroids and did the same amount of training, he would lift more than otherwise. So I don't understand where there would ever be a debate on that. And based on what he said earlier, it sounds like he believes that too. So I think he's just trying to justify and rationalize, where steroids fall in. But the truth is that steroids are Tom Platz at this point in his life. His dosage is defining his entire existence. If he took less steroids than he does, or no steroids, he would not be Tom Platz. So it's important to put them in the right context here. They are imperative to what he's doing.
What things are you looking for when you have the blood tests?
Oh God, you need somebody to analyze your blood test and get into every, basically liver function, enzyme activity, elevated enzyme activity, and I'd be weary of that. There are some more androgenic, I hope you know what I mean by that. Androgenic compounds, things that are like testosterone-based items, things that are have more secondary male characteristics. They, to put it short, put it mildly, they aid in more sarcoplasm development. Okay. Now, sarcoplasm. What do I mean by sarcoplasm? The liquid, the jelly, putty-like stuff that the muscle bathes in. So a lot of times you'll see a guy take Anadrol 50 and blow up like a balloon, right? And after they get off the drugs, back down to a skinny guy again, okay? Right. A lot of that is water, and a lot of that is sarcoplasm as well. Strength athletes need and require more sarcoplasm enhancement to aid in leverage and in their strength performance. That's why they look smooth and fat, but sometimes it's just sarcoplasm enhancement, not to mention fat and water too. Okay, now you're dealing with a guy that's 6'5", who needs more sarcoplasm enhancement. They may adopt more more of an androgenic therapy, more of an androgenic program. These drugs are more dangerous.
So, you know, here he's talking about compound selection. It's kind of broscience-y. I mean, taller guys need more androgenic compounds for more sarcoplasmic growth. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, all these things are created to, you know, increase nitrogen retention, increase the amount of muscle that you build while you're taking them. So they might create a different look and different results while you're taking them, but to body build, it's a process of taking things for a long time. So the acute effects aren't going to be as important. It's interesting that he chooses to focus on that. I mean, that's one way to look at it. It's not wrong, but at the end of the day, it's not really that important.
To repeat something Arnold said, I always wondered why Arnold liked Dianabol. And I remember him, I wouldn't say this, but he said this to me one time at the Olympia on stage. He said this, that he liked Dianabol, and I was wondering why he liked Dianabol, but I started analyzing it, and Dianabol is like androgenic as well as androgenic, anabolic as well as androgenic. It gave him the sarcoplasm enhancement that he needed for a tall structure. It was anabolic as well, and I feel you get true muscle gains from anabolic situation, and from androgenic gains you get more sarcoplasm enhancement and less actual myofiber development. So, to mildly, briefly give you my approach to drug therapy.
So basically he likes like drier compounds where he can, you know, put on muscle and still look lean and not have too much water retention. I mean, he's just basically trying to say that.
Therapy, those are some of the items I considered and how I look purely cosmetically, like when I'm concerned with sarcoplasm, which apply what it is. Lee Haney would need more sarcoplasm, where like Belknap, I think he has too much sarcoplasm, you know, okay? It's like me, if I take what Lee Haney takes, I look like Tim Belknap, okay? Too much sarcoplasm, but Tim's a good friend of mine. I think he's, okay, I don't mean to put him down or anything. He's a very superior physique. But these are things I notice, okay? Not that I'm saying drugs are great, we should all take drugs. Hey.
This is funny. It's actually like an early sort of like reacting to Arnold and Lee Haney's steroid cycle, because he knows what they take, and he's like, oh, if I took what they take, I would blow up, because, you know, he's smaller than them. He probably needs to take less stuff because he's smaller, has like a smaller body weight and stuff like that.
Let's hear it. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm opening up and being honest. And I firmly believe in a decreasing dosage pattern under the duration of anabolic, utilizing anabolic.
Okay, this is the part that makes absolutely no sense.
Situations. In other words, starting high for a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, going medium for 2 or 3 weeks, going low for 2 or 3 weeks, off for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and going back high again. This enables the body's natural secretion. So this is completely untrue. At this point, we know, like, you shut yourself down, you're shut down. You know, being off for 2 or 3 weeks is not actually being off. So what he's describing is constantly being on steroids and constantly changing the amount of hormones that are going into his body. Might have worked for him, you know, strong work ethic, good genetics, but it does not make sense really at all. And I know in the golden era, they really like this sort of pyramid style cycles, but wouldn't it make more sense to start low, build up to a peak and then go back down, as opposed to just starting high and then going all the way down and start? I mean, it ultimately doesn't really matter. It's really going to be about the total milligrams that he takes over time. And considering that he's like pretty much never off, because, you know, the half-life is still going to be in his body while he's off for those 2 or 3 weeks, his natural production will never recover, which also puts into question when he talks about blood tests. You know, he talks about liver tests and stuff like that, organs, but was he checking his testosterone level? Probably not, because if he was, he would have known that, you know, he's crashed. He does not have natural production. You know, he's always on the cycle, basically. To shut off completely. As the body's natural secretion begins to diminish, and then you reduce the dosage, and then your body's natural secretion, theoretically, well, supposedly, according to the data that exists, increases. And as you go lower in the dosage, your body goes natural and secretes more testosterone.
Look at those legs. Jesus Christ. Well, I don't know what data he's talking about, but at this point we know that that's not true.
Naturally. So you never want to shut down natural secretion. Otherwise, if you take drugs incorrectly, you get smaller and weaker.
I also think it's funny that they say, like, you know, health and fitness right behind them, the natural way to better health, like, as if.
Rather than bigger and stronger. Taking too much drugs too long, even if you take more, your body won't respond to it anymore. I'm sure you've heard this and seen people in the gym, I'm not getting any results anymore. You can't get any more effective even if you go present a higher dosage to the body. At that point, you need to get off, cycle down, and clean off well, so to speak. Sometimes when I'm off steroids, I use HCG, human gonadotrophic hormone, to help stimulate natural secretion again. And that's my procedure, to put it very, very lightly. I mean, in Germany, I've discussed this thing.
HCG, that's good advice. Taking HCG between cycles definitely makes sense.
Same thing I'm discussing right now for about 3 hours, and we didn't do justice to it at all.
I would love to see that.
I've heard Fred Halfman speak on 8 hours with a lunch break on just androgenic and anabolic therapy. Okay, so it can be a very detailed process, and it tends to get more and more involved as you get more and more educated along the lines of hormonal manipulation. By no means is it risk-free. Granted, I feel that I'm avoiding a lot of the risks involved by avoiding abuse, but there still is a risk present. But you got to understand, I'm not rationalizing and saying I'm proud of taking steroids. Okay, I'm not. But an athlete, as I mentioned earlier, has a need. Not just.
I hate all these like excuses, like I'm not proud of it. I'm not. This isn't something that I would want to do. It's just what I do because I'm an athlete. It's like, come on, dude. Come on. You really didn't want to. If you really didn't want to do it, you wouldn't do it.
It's a desire and need. I mean, an athlete, a true athlete, a professional athlete, will die. I mean, they'll die. I'll die inside if I don't get where I want to go. If I don't give it everything I have. It's me. It's my makeup. It's my life. And to take a steroid which doesn't commit suicide on my part, I feel I can take with a minimum amount of risk and get closer to my goal. Most athletes will pursue.
So this is what I don't get. These pro athletes say, I would die to reach my goal. But then they say, I don't abuse things. I take things in the minimum possible dosages. Well, you just said you would die to reach your goal. So what is it really? Will you die to reach your goal, or are you being conservative? It can't be both of those things at once. It just doesn't make any logical sense. Think about it.
Drug therapy, and they do. And I think that's one of the reasons they probably get into that train of thought, is because it's more than just a desire. It's a need. They'll die if they don't. They'll die anyhow if they don't get there. So it's like worth the risk in our minds. I should say, most athletes' minds. These are only my views, and not either the Bible. And I don't mean to lay my thoughts on you and my absolute inner feelings and say, this is it. But these are how I feel at the moment. And over the course of years, I've taken drugs incorrectly, and I've developed problems like I couldn't get any more results, and I wondered why I was getting smaller and holding water and these kind of things. And after altering dosage and going to a decreasing dosage pattern, these kind of things, I was able to remedy a lot of the problems I've had.
So a lot of the times, these pros will take a lot of stuff to build up their size, and then they will go down to like a lower dosage and then preach the lower dosage and how they feel better at the lower dosage. Obviously, you're going to feel better when you're not pushing yourself. Like when you're maintaining, you're just, making small adjustments on what you're doing. Could Tom do that on 700 milligrams at where he's at? Yeah, he could make small adjustments. He could avoid himself losing muscle. Is he going to build the size that he built on that? No. So that's pretty much how it goes. Everybody goes through this journey. And I think it's crazy now that, a lot of people on the other side preach low dosages. And then if you just take low dosages all the time, you'll never get to look like Tom Platz. And then you'll never get to lower your dosages and feel justified in that and say that you're taking a health approach. So it's like with bodybuilders talking about this stuff, it's really like, what did you do yesterday? He says, I never took more than 700 milligrams. That's what he took last week. So he never took more than that. But now he's telling us the truth. And that's what it is. And I love Tom Platz. For him to come out and even talk about this is very courageous for the time. But are we getting complete uncensored honesty? No. We're getting a politically correct, statement. He's trying to manage expectations. He's dealing with the stigma and trying to, if you know how to read between the lines, get the information out to you. Okay. And that information is, that, yes, I take steroids. I take them in whatever dosage I feel like taking them. Now I understand that, you know, taking a lot isn't necessarily good for my health, and a little bit about compound selection and stuff like that in there. But it's not really a guide, you know, how to do it. There's really not much to take away from this other than, you know, Tom did whatever he wanted, and now he's just being honest about it and a little bit apologetic about it.
Medically speaking, I never had any problems as far as serious side effects, though, no. Yes?
Just with the IFBB banning steroids in the amateurs this year for the first time, do you think there may come a time when it's banned in the Olympic? I mean, if everyone weren't allowed to use it, it's still fair and equal.
Yeah, that'd be great, okay, if we could do that.
It starts in the amateur now, though. It's this
yeah.
year.
I'm just wondering.
So now I already know where this is going. Like, yeah, it would be great if everyone could stop using it. The cream will rise to the top. Doesn't matter. You know, the champions are still going to be champions, blah, blah, blah. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know, I hope you learned something. It's very interesting to watch these old school legends talk about this kind of stuff. I would love to see more clips like this. It's very interesting, but I just hate how it's shrouded in this weird sort of apologetic, you know, stigmatized, like wrapping paper. I wish that you could just get like a bro to come on there and really tell you how it is. And that's why I love like the Real Bodybuilding podcast, you know, what Fuad Abiad is doing and what, you know, what I'm trying to do out here. Just give you guys, you know, the truth. You know, people deserve to know the real way that we approach this. It's not always so careful. It's not always so cautious and calculated. And there's not always blood test every 2 days. It's, you know, this is reality. People take drugs and they, you know, want to reach their goals, and they're willing to push themselves into an unhealthy place to do it sometimes. Would I recommend it? No. Do I recommend it to any of my clients? No, but that's the reality. That's what people do. And we can wrap it up and make it pretty and put a bow on it and try to sell it. But at the end of the day, you know, it's just people, just gym rats, you know, bodybuilders doing what bodybuilders do. I recommend taking as smart of an approach as you possibly can. Educate yourself as much as you can, but there's no way around it. You know, you take more, you get bigger, you become a pro, you whatever, or you take less and you just always look like somebody who took less. You know, you'll be more than a natural, but you'll be less than a pro. And I'm comfortable with that. You know, I'm comfortable with that because my health is important to me. And I just feel like a lot of people nowadays want to have a shortcut. They want to have the knowledge that gets them there without having to put them at any risk. And that's kind of what Tom is like trying, the kind of like, the, you know, the angle that he's taking here. And it, you know, it's a fantasy at the end of the day. It's a fantasy. So I hope you guys like this video. I hope you learned something. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Am I full of bullshit? Is Tom full of bullshit? You know, what's going on here? And thanks for watching, guys. Peace.